This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I'm Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to ending abortion where you live. And today we will talk about the main thing required for that, aside from prayer and courage, and that is using our free speech. We are going to do a legal breakdown of everything that we have been doing on the legal front. This will be fun. It will be entertaining, especially for being a legal topic, because our goal is to keep everyone out of prison so that they can end abortion. And somebody who probably should be in prison for multiple reasons and violations of the law is my co-host, Mr. Steve Carlin.
I love the work release program that allows me to be here. What can I say?
No, you really have. Your parole officer, the last guy was rude, but I like the new guy.
Yeah, that's the thing I like to do at weddings is when you sit down at a table and there's people you don't know. Like, how do you know the couple? And I'll ask them first. And how about you? And then whichever side they're not on, I say, we shared the same parole officer with Lindsay.
Yeah, and then everybody, it's like an inappropriate joke that makes everybody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We're also joined by our general counsel, Matt Britton, who has never been in prison.
No, I've when I was a DA, I went into prison to interview people, get evidence, things like that, but never been.
They let you out.
Yeah, they let me in. Didn't have to go through the metal detector, and they let me out. Like he had the keys to the prison.
You talk about prison a lot in daily conversation, one of your many qualities. One thing that you said one time, and I thought he would really know that because he's been in prison a lot. Mm-hmm. You say stuff that means more than the average person. Like, you don't want to go to prison.
No.
Like, you say that, and it makes sense because I've been to the state prison once to give a pro-life talk, and I had that moment where, hey, the guard, you're coming with us, right? And the little preacher who was with me is like, we don't get a guard. And I'm like, so we're going to walk around with the inmates? He's like, yeah, that's the visit those in prison part. So, but you've been enough where you know you don't want to go.
No, and what that question makes me reflect upon is moving from the ridiculous to the sublime. The ridiculous being that Steve Carlin would ever do anything wrong that could even get him arrested.
But when you said moving from the ridiculous, you nodded towards Steve.
Because
his
you
existence. Oh, okay.
No,
I thought you were just saying.
Because it's ridiculous that he would ever be in prison.
Okay, I thought you were saying Steve himself was ridiculous.
Not at all. He's one of the most unridiculous people I know. And he does a great job. Really? I know you wouldn't. You said that he was a felon. In any event, those poor people in Nashville, for instance, and the way that the other administrations, the Biden administration and others, had weaponized law enforcement, specifically in their case, federal law enforcement, but there was a trickle-down, like Reagan had his trickle-down economics. That was trickle-down law enforcement, where maybe the left and the woke and the law enforcement haters who somehow became sheriff and constable and chief of police or DA, especially DA, AG. You look at St. Louis, Houston, judges, that they are able to weaponize state and local and federal law enforcement. And then people go, I mean, these are like your mom. Not your mom, but
right.
Like people the age of your mom, like grandchildren and great-grandchildren who are in the penitentiary for maybe holding a sign up in a violation, and suddenly they're domestic terrorists, and they're in prison, like with the rapists,
Yeah.
People are gonna be like, oh, they don't put them in. Like, that's one of the statements that kind of bugs me. Like, oh, do you know anything? Have you ever been in law enforcement? No. Have you been in a penitentiary? No. How do you know where they're putting these people? Like, what? You just assume everything, like you assume everything in your life. That's not what they do in abortion. And like, have you ever watched them? Well, no, I wouldn't. So that really is the thing. When it comes down to it, we can all say, well, some things are worth going to. But when your name's on the warrant,
yeah,
because I can tell you as a lawyer, I've tried thousands of cases. And I'm like, it's all right, Sean, we'll get you out of this, man. We'll get you out of it. But when it's your house that you can lose, you've been sued.
Yep.
By Planned Parenthood.
It's different.
It's different. When they serve you,
yeah,
and they're like, and you're like lifting up the curtain a little bit going, did you call the police? Because the police are here. It's different, right? When they're at your neighbor's house, you're like, we'll go over later with the casserole.
Right.
But when it's you, It's like I'll make sure there's money in your commissary account, Sean. You know?
Yeah, I remember being prepared to be a witness, and that's very real. I wasn't called to the stand,
And you've been on a jury.
yeah, I have been on a jury, which is a long, funny, entertaining story.
But the judge goes home at night.
yeah, the judge goes.
The lawyers go home at night. The jurors go home at night. The clerk goes home at night.
Yeah,
You know, when you get in a tan jumpsuit and you have shackles, whether you did it or not, like that's a big deal.
well, and I think now, by the way, with the election, this is why the election was so crucial. And people love Trump or you hate Trump. I never, and me and Steve talked about this a lot. We never had an election where personally the outcome was going to be the greatest it's ever been in our life, because we're either going to keep dealing with Biden's insane DOJ on a daily basis, professionally, personally, or it's going to get better. And it for sure got better. But I think that there were two cases. Joe Scheidler said to me years ago, without the pro-life movement, there is no free speech. I mean, no one has
Joe Scheidler, who's been in jail. Well, he's dead now.
God rest his soul. But there were two things. The arrest of Mark Houck, which we'll get to his case later, our volunteer with 7 kids had his house raided by the FBI, where normal people and even people who support abortion are like, okay, this is a little nuts. There was that case, and then there was Isabel in England. I just got asked about this last week when free speech came up, of that lady in England, you know, where she had the thought crime, and the Brits who have decided to burn the Magna Carta and beat free speech with a baseball bat. They're really the worst. And I got interviewed by the BBC on this a couple of months ago, and I said, you know, 40 Days for Life is in 64 countries. We've been honored to be invited into the UK in 2010, and from there it spread throughout Europe. We have a lot of pride in our relationship with your country. I didn't go over and lead campaigns. That we were invited, and it's Brits leading Brits. But it is the most hostile country we face, and we have more free speech and less harassment from the government in China and Germany than we do in London. And I said, my grandfather who served in World War II and your grandfather, to the reporter, is probably rolling over in their grave at that reality, that we can do more in Berlin than we can in London. And he said, I am offended that you brought up the war in this context. And I said, I'm offended I had to. So you're supposed to be the one that brings up the war because you had the Blitz. We didn't. And so I really think that highlighted it for the average person. But as we go through some of these legal cases, the impetus, thank God we've had you since 2014, 2015. But then when we expanded the legal arm of 40 Days for Life with the Institute of Law and Justice, that was out of necessity because of all of the cases that we got and all of the harassment. And
yeah, and we're coming into our 3rd year. You and I, it's sort of the brainchild. I remember 5 years ago of you and I. I remember one time we were having trouble, and another case, and we were having trouble finding some of these great pro-life, pro bono partners, lawyers, because they're busy, right, and they're swamped. And you were like, well, you could do it. You're a trial lawyer, like you did all thousands of cases. You could do it. And that was and then you accelerated it. The board was totally behind us, and we started the Institute of Law and Justice within 40 Days for Life. And now it's sort of divided into 3 segments that I divided into, which is Steve and I handle the campaign side, right? So we have hundreds of thousands, whatever the actual number is, 1,500,000, it doesn't matter. A lot of people who are volunteering to give their time, and they don't deserve to be in the penitentiary or jail. Jail is when you get local charges, misdemeanors less than 12 months, and the penitentiary is felonies and more than a year, typically, if people wanted to know. If you ever want to know the difference between a year and 12 months, it's jail and the penitentiary. At least that's how prosecutors look. So,
that's funny.
Yeah, it is funny. Most of what I say is pretty funny. And then Steve and I do that, and we get about 250 requests a year from the United States. I also handle several overseas with Lourdes and what have you, but not many because that they have different types of law, generally called civil law. But we get about 250 requests a year, and Steve's team is able to handle about a lot of those, 1/3 of those on their own. They're like, what should I do about this? Should I get a permit? Should I speak to the law enforcement? They keep coming out, that type of stuff. And then, but the rest of them we handle, and We have a good breakdown of all those cases, but we can get into that. But basically, it's harassment. They claim falsely that we're harassing. We even had a woman get charged for singing Peter Pan too close to an abortion facility. It was dropped, obviously, but it was dropped after we got into the case. It was in Colorado, and it got dropped because a lawyer. And people don't know lawyers. Like, where do I go? What do I get we used to have a phone book before you were born, and you probably, but now you get on the internet. But we used to have a phone book, a white one and a yellow one. And like, if you needed a lawyer, you went into the yellow pages under lawyer, I guess.
Yeah.
But now they don't have to do that because we represent our own. And we've been out there. How many hundreds and thousands of hours have been on the street with these people? And I know when you get the one finger wave. I know when you get the honk. I know when people throw stuff out the window in coffee and say, I'm coming back with body bags. It's all happened to me. So I know what and then a lot of it is sign stealing. We get a lot of sign stealing and destruction. And of course, they rip it out of their hands. I mean, a lot, like dozens every campaign. And that's actually an assault. Like, think of a football player. Like, when he reaches over the goal line, if you watch football, that you get a touchdown, right? That the ball is part of your body. So if your purse is and they snatch it, that's actually assault. And if they take it with the intent to keep it, that's strong arm robbery. So a lot of times what we're doing is just getting people charged. I mean, the cops won't even charge them, so we have that.
This is one of the things that I found so critical from the local 40 Days for Life leader and volunteer perspective. As you think about what do we need a 40 Days for Life Institute of Law and Justice for, what do we need leaders for, and you think, well, they're infringing upon my First Amendment rights to assemble and to pray in the public square. And that certainly is a big part of what you've done, is make sure that those rights are protected. But the other side of it that I don't think comes top of mind to many people is, are their rights to stand and witness and pray in the public square being infringed upon not by the state or by the city or by the feds, but by threats and violence? And when law enforcement has just looked the other way on those threats and violence, then you don't have in actuality a real practical right to speak out.
That's what it is. It's, they call us domestic terrorists. It's exactly the opposite. They're doing it for what Sean said, which is to chill, to stop. And like, yeah, I can go out there, but I'm a 29-year-old mom with 4 kids. I can't go to jail, and that's not our charism, right? We're prayerful and peaceful and lawful. And some people could say, well, sometimes, okay, but that's not our charism, right?
Yeah.
And that's their tool, is violence. We're not killing babies. That's their tool. We're doing the opposite. And so that First Amendment is at the heart of it. And when they steal a sign, they're not doing it because they needed a sign. They're throwing it in the dump, right? They're not. I remember that, by the way. It reminds me of that old SNL with the detective, like the absent-minded.
Yeah, the absent-minded.
When somebody broke into an abortion clinic in New York City and everything's broken and everything, and up on the wall it says "baby killers" in blood, and he's like, "Oh well, at least they didn't mess with your sign." And anyway, they're not. They're vandalizing our signs. They're throwing them away, right? They don't need a sign. When they like this lady that stole coffee, she just went up and took our coffee off our table, like coffee and donuts. Like, she could have had a cup if she had just, but no, she has to steal the entire bin of coffee and run away with it. They're doing that to harass, right? And people say, well, I'm not in for this. I'm not in for this. When she called the police 99 times in a month, I'm not in for this. I'm not in for this type of harassment, and we give in, right? And that's why fortitude and those things are. And so the First Amendment, though, is really protected by saying, when you get charged, we've got your back. And that's what we've done, and we've gone every single time. And
it gives confidence. Just having lawyers gives volunteers confidence. That's the way we have it, is to serve the local volunteers, to serve the leaders, to instill confidence. And I think if we hadn't have responded with the Institute of Law and Justice during the Biden terror reign on free speech, we would have continued. We were losing people, but we would have continued to lose more. And the reality,
well, after Mark Houck,
Houck raid, that's
people were very worried, and with good reason.
With good reason,
and frankly, after the Nashville 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
who
got
weren't 40 days
arrested.
for lifers, but they got
Yeah.
arrested and pardoned.
They weren't with us, but they got arrested, and for the, I mean, now it's safe as ever to go out and to peacefully pray and to participate. There's always risk with whatever
things
you
have
do.
But
it's been night and day.
night and day. I mean, you know that one of the reasons we started was that you and me were getting calls. The FBI wants to speak with me.
Yeah.
The chief of police wants to speak with me about our rights, right? And maybe there were one or two right-thinking, life-loving cops. I know a lot of them, but they weren't able to speak up at that time, who were like, I want to make sure you're protected, man. You're doing the thing for the little kids. I really respect that. That, by the way, happened to me in Beverly, Massachusetts. I was up there and I was standing on a wall with a megaphone because it's a busy street, It's Massachusetts, near Boston. And there's a Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood, they call the cops and pretend like they're in the apartment building right next to where I was speaking. Well, by the time the cop got
To
there,
report a noise violation?
yeah, oh yeah,
that's kinda smart.
we're asleep. He's
Yeah.
waking us up.
And it was the Planned
It's middle
Parenthood
of the-
boys.
Middle of the day, but it was really Planned Parenthood. 'Cause
that's
the cop
great.
told us. So this cop pulls up and he's a lieutenant, and I'm climbing down from the wall, and I got the megaphone in my hand, and he goes, "Hey!" He rolls down his window. It's like a busy street, but he's a cop, right? So he puts on his lights. He goes, "Hey, you using a megaphone?" And I said, "Not currently, but I was." And he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I drove up from Washington, D.C. To give a talk for 40 Days for Life. It was really busy. They couldn't hear me, so I climbed up on this wall. They handed me a megaphone. And so I gave about a 10 or 12-minute talk. And he goes, "For what?" And I said, "Well, that's a Planned Parenthood, and 40 Days for Life protects the unborn." And he goes, "You should be able to use a megaphone." And he drives away.
That was the end of the conversation.
So it's like, they forgot that they're all Irish Catholics.
They're all
right?
Irish Catholics.
So, there are
That's
cops
funny.
like that. But
That's great.
anyway, they'll do anything. And so we've got it. And that's a big part of it. And we have a great process and our leaders, and you can talk about
Well, it's so important because, Sean, you mentioned earlier on that this election and the Biden administration leaving office affected our lives on a day-to-day basis. And I don't look back with fondness on 2022, for example, when I'm pumping gas and I get the call from the leader like, "Hey, I just got an email from the FBI." And if I don't, it's not about me, and the listener doesn't care about that. We're blessed to be able to do this as our day-to-day. But where it is a real crisis is if I don't like that and you don't like that and you don't like that, how much less does the lady who's trying to put 4 kids through school and serve her community by leading a 40 Days for Life campaign, how much worse is it for her to have to get the phone call or the email from the FBI? And so this is where it's so great because now we get those and somebody from the FBI is making an inquiry and we're able to put them in touch with Matt and ILJ and they ask a couple of questions, right? Like who authorized this and what are you
went
doing?
from yes, but blessedly twice a year instead of 32 times a year.
Right.
I mean, it went from 3 times a month requests to speak to law enforcement on our behalf. "We're not investigating you." Well, then I'm not going to talk to you. Come on, man. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
Is that like in the book? Is that in the manual?
They're always very casual, like they're here to.
Oh, yeah. Made at coffee shops.
Yeah.
And I'd always do the same thing. I'd say, "Great. Please send me an outline with just the 5 topics you wish to discuss and whether the call would be recorded." And we'd never hear back.
Yeah.
Like, who authorized this investigation? Who's your supervisor's name? Like, where do you sit? Do you sit in a quiet cubicle? Because I've been doing it.
Yeah.
I've done it. I've run thousands of investigations. I'm like, do you sit in a quiet cubicle? When you woke up yesterday, did you have a memo on your desk? That's a public document, right? Can I see a copy of that memo under the Freedom of Information Act? And you're like, come on, man. Like, come on, man, won't explain me.
Yeah.
It may have worked if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. But nursery rhymes don't work with me. They may work with juries in L.A., but
was
you're
a
not
great
going
line.
Yeah, it was. None of the people within 1 or 2 years were practicing law. Not a single lawyer.
Well, they all became celebrities.
I know it, or died. And so we do that, and we have a great process. The leaders can report this in, and I don't know. You get the feet. Like I'm the welder. I'm the tip of the spear. I go. And by the way, I'd like to point out, thanks to you and the board, I was able to recruit and hire. We have someone from the DOJ. You talk about diversity. So true diversity is making sure that you know what the heck you're doing, right? Because you want to make sure that your lawyer is a good lawyer, right? They
Yes.
don't need to be a good driver or really good at mowing the lawn, or they need to be a good lawyer, right? What we need are great lawyers that are pro-life, not great pro-lifers that went to
Right.
law school on the internet, right? So we have a DOJ lawyer from Nashville. We've got an elected DA from Missouri who's handling a case as a special appointed attorney general in Missouri because Planned Parenthood sued Missouri.
Yeah, to defend Missouri's pro-life
I'm
laws.
a former elected DA. We have a great fellow that just joined us from South Carolina who's retired after some 40 plus years and has represented in thousands of not-for-profit organizations. We have tall building lawyers, and I'm not going through everything. I don't want to miss anyone, but we have a great group of people, and we know what we're doing. And I think that I hope you get the complaints and the attaboys, but I hope that has been reflected in our responsive time. You know, I used to sit on the head of the disciplinary board for Virginia when I was a DA, and 80% of complaints are failure to communicate. It's not that they lost my case. It's not that they stole my money. It's not that they just won't call me back. I don't know what's happening on my appeal. You know, and that's frustrating. In life, that's frustrating.
Well, it's just you can't get a hold of a lawyer.
So I hope they're appreciative.
Well, absolutely. And you can almost see that the transition from skepticism to relief take place immediately, because I think a lot of people think, okay, now the FBI contacted me, or now this guy threatened me, or I've got to get a police, or whatever thing it is that brings them, a 40 Days for Life leader, into the legal realm. People aren't enthusiastic to deal with lawyers. I'm very enthusiastic to deal with you, Matt. But most people, lawyers, they get a little bit nervous about it, and it's going to take forever. I got to fill out an intake form. I'm never going to hear back from them. There's going to be paperwork. And suddenly, they engage the 40 Days for Life Institute of Law and Justice because they have a need, and their situation is dealt with and over in 36 hours. And you can see the relief come across their faces in real time, because they know, okay, I thought this was going to be a months-long crisis where I'm dealing with my city council and my police department and my lawyer and the other people's lawyers and paperwork and affidavits. And no, most of the stuff actually gets knocked out pretty quickly.
We tell them the truth, too. You know, you just blow sunshine at people and say, this could be a long walk, but we will walk it with you. And there may be some costs and expenses or whatever, but what you won't have are legal fees. And what you won't have to do is go find an attorney. Now, if you want to go get an attorney, if you think Britton's an idiot, then go get an attorney. But most people are like, okay. And we have entered our appearances and gone to trial and gone to jury trials. We just had to go to a jury trial. Praise be to God, the judge realized how stupid it was and threw it out before the jury even got. But the whole state's evidence came. And we sent letter after letter, and they kept continuing it. That's what you do, right? You keep continuing it because the person's under the charge. So as our international lawyer, Tomislav Kunovic, says, the process is the punishment.
Yeah.
And so they'll charge crappy things. That lady who sang Peter Pan was charged with cyberbullying. She was on the street, and the other Planned Parenthood worker heard her in a parking lot.
And she's just singing out loud.
And the judge is like, there's some you do have dinosaurs in your dinosaur park.
Right.
There will be a cyber element to this, right? We just moved to dismiss. I think that's a good idea. You know, and I mean, it gets absurd. And some of those are quick. Letter to the DA. But actually, they stole our sign and you charged with theft. Oh, yeah, the cop told me that. Sorry, we're going to charge that lady. But some of them are a long walk. And what we can do with them is explain the process. And we're Christians. We're life-loving. We care about people. And those people are alive. Like their mom chose life. So we treat them with compassion and say, it's kind of, when you get charged with a crime, I've been told, it's kind of like the doctor going, you know, when you go and they do the tests or whatever, and the doctor, I'll be back in a minute. And he comes back with 3 people.
Yeah. And a clipboard.
And he's like,
We had to look this up.
this kind of brain cancer doesn't. Wait. This kind of what? You never mentioned brain. Why are we talking about kinds of brain cancer? And, you know, that's kind of what it is. Like, so will I see my wife again? You know, that's what you get, right?
It is. It's
And
true.
like, will I see my grandkids again? But I have a house. I have a mortgage payment. I have a job. I told Sean Carney I can't come out here and go to jail. You won't go to jail. We got the IL. Well, we do. You know, we do.
And some of the benefit to the leaders and to the campaign participants starts long before there's a law enforcement inquiry, right? You see this all the time. You talk about chilling. And so, California passed a law that prohibits you from filming in front of an abortion facility. or such and such a city enacted an ordinance that stops harassment, that interferes with reproductive rights. And you can go in, if you're a lawyer like you are and like the other attorneys are, you can go in and you can look at what is the definition of harassment and preventing reproductive services and all of those sorts of things. But to the average guy, they're like, well, gosh, we hear that 75% of people turn away from an abortion if I'm out there praying. Could that be considered harassment? Is that interfering with reproductive health care?
Back right before me in law school, I know what Steve's thinking. 1813? They had law school. Right before me in law school, 95, you were taught in law school to tell your clients what the law was. And when I was in law school, they were telling you, don't tell them what it is. They can read. They're smart people. They're CEOs. Many of them are lawyers. They just didn't practice law. Don't tell them what the law is. Tell them what it means. But as I began to practice law, we moved into a partnership, which is what we have, right? Like I'm in on the ground floor. You don't, if you're like, hey, can I use howdy on a T-shirt? You ask me that before you print the T-shirt, right? And that's the big thing. We're not reactionary anymore, and we're going to get into that. And they said, don't tell them what the law is or what it means. Tell them what they need to do about it. So they don't really care whether there's an ordinance or what it says. They're like, can I do this?
Yes.
So you need to know that. And we said as lawyers, if you want that, then we need a seat at the table. Then you can't just come to us with problems that have happened. You need to come to us with problems that we can solve. And I hope that's what we're doing. And if you look, you can give them the site. I always forget it, even though it's on. We have a ILJ website with resources on it, and you can go and you can see we have First Amendment, know your rights, Fourth Amendment, know your rights. Can a cop ask me for my ID?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, sure. Anybody can ask you for your ID. The lady at the grocery store can ask you for your ID, but you don't have to give it to them. Well, when do I have to give it to them? Can I take a photograph of yes, but we prohibit that. What if I do take a photograph and it's on the street and in the background? Well, in your area, they actually have a FACE Act, a state or local FACE Act that does prohibit that. The guard's right. And we will find that out. Don't do that. That's what they want to know. That's what people want to know. Man, I'm just out there for 2 hours praying. Can I do it or not?
Yeah.
Can I stick my sign in the and that's what we do. And I know that because I'm a trial dog. That's what people want to know. Because if you give an opinion and I give an opinion, they don't know either way I'm right or wrong, right? So thanks. Neither you two didn't help me. Thanks, frickin' Brack.
Well,
now I know what the law is and I know what it means, but I don't know what to do. Did you go to what law school did you go to? They have a law school at Idiot Camp?
Are you the guy from My Cousin Vinny?
Yeah, exactly.
How many different levels of thickness
these
have you gone
magic
through?
grits?
Right, magic grits, Jack and the Beanstalk. Well, it is the free speech stuff, and that is obviously toned down, which is great. It still comes up, particularly at the local level. But we've had copyright infringement; those are fun. We've talked about recently on the webcast the 40 Days for Choice, the beginning of the end of oppression, which was a lot of fun.
That was recent.
That was very, very.
They were
recent.
reasonable about it. They took it down.
But also,
some people aren't. But we've had 40 days of death, 40 days of hate, and it just goes to show the hate side. Like, it's really not a cause. Killing people's babies for money. So, like, you don't spend a lot of time apparently thinking up your own stuff. So they just steal our stuff. It's, they steal the Angel Man, they steal the 40, they steal beginning of end of abortion. Some of it's clever, but it's still a turn on our stuff, right?
it is. Well, and it's
Like, why don't you come up with your own stuff? Well, that takes time.
Yeah, that takes time.
Thought. Money.
People probably don't remember, but it was going on offense has also been one of the things with the ILJ of we can't sit back and just wait for bad things to happen. We have to, because we're on the street and we're in 1,800 locations, we know when things are going bad. So, or when they're violating the law, and we definitely did that when, Planned Parenthood was allowing the Harris Waltz campaign to use their facilities in Florida for political fundraisers and lobbying.
And we're not making this up. We have pictures of the signs on the Planned Parenthood office.
Yeah. Y'all did the IRS complaint.
They had a phone bank, apparently, we assume soliciting, but they definitely had, and we have people in Harris Waltz T-shirts walking in and out of a Planned Parenthood building.
And they're a 501c3.
Okay, so completely prohibited.
Yeah.
And they sent people, I'm sure the next one you're going to say, up to the DNC.
Yes, they sent people up to the DNC to offer free abortions, which of course is always politically inspiring to motivate people to vote for you.
I don't know if they offered free abortions, but they were doing vasectomies and they were advocating abortion. They certainly had the pills and stuff.
The
like
pills,
that.
yeah, they were doing the abortion pills, but they, as y'all
Shockingly,
pointed
they
out-
were welcomed with open arms in Chicago.
Yes, they were. The other thing,
And then, Sean, they went to the RNC,
Right.
and they went to the CPAC, and they went to all the conservative. Oh no, they didn't do that.
it was just the DNC.
Yeah, right.
Which you put in the IRS complaint letter.
Yeah, I know. I said they could have showed up at the RNC, and I wouldn't have been writing this letter, right? But they're apparently not an equal opportunity employer. They're for diversity if you're fit in the categories that they like.
Yeah, I think we always have to call them out on that. We did the same with the abortion pill advertisements, where they were illegally potentially illegally advertising for abortion pills along the beach when people
Not
were
Planned
there.
Parenthood, Mayday
Right,
Health.
right. The
Just
health
want to be
company,
clear, not Planned Parenthood, Mayday Health.
Mayday Health, and so we wrote a letter and to the AG of Florida, and those are things we advertise
FDA.
in the FDA. Those are things we advertise on the website and we've talked about, but there's still more behind the scenes that are very, very important to protect our IP, to go after the abortion industry or big pharma on these abortions.
And we have a training. We're going to update on that. Why we do that? Why can't I just use your thing? Well, it's not because we're worried about our great campaign leaders. It's because we're worried about the evil side taking it. And they do. I mean, I can't, over the years, all the Illinois professor and all that stuff that we've gone through, and, people have sabotaged our campaigns and infiltrated our website and all that stuff. And all that is just so that we can remain on the street. I mean, right? I remember you told me, I was like, well, what do we do when I first joined the board in end of 12, beginning of 13? And you said, we support our leaders.
That's what we do.
We support our leaders. And that's what we do, right? We obtain, maintain, train, and support our leaders, right? I tried to make a fourth rhyming thing, but I'm not that smart, so I'm going to have Steve. Very smart.
Inflict pain. No.
No. Pain is not what good. It does rhyme. What pain doesn't obtain, love, support, pain? That's what he thinks about.
I was looking at Steve.
His glass in his shoes. Oh.
Yeah, glass in the shoes. Okay, speaking of, so I know you can't comment too much on this because it's coming to a conclusion, but we sued the DOJ, speaking of Mark Houck.
We did.
So he was acquitted of all of his garbage. It's a 98% conviction rate. We win. Then he goes on offense and decides, because rightly so, in my opinion, to sue the DOJ. You represented him for that. And what can you say on that? That's been an ongoing process.
Well, what I can say is that not only did he get arrested, get charged, it was the arrest, and we had offered to turn him in peacefully, but they had to send out, these men and women, and there were men and women of the FBI and the local and state law enforcement, they're not thugs, right? They're not thugs, but when you go out there and jump out of cars with fully automatic weapon and point them at children and surround houses, maybe some people deserve that.
Yeah.
But Mark Houck doesn't. And he
Right.
had 7 kids and a wife, and there was the dawn raid.
He offered to
and
turn
we had
himself
offered
in
to
with
turn
their
him.
bogus
so
charges.
anyway, so then he gets acquitted in an hour, as he should, by a
jury.
Philadelphia jury.
Yeah.
Who's like, this is what I'm talking about, the penitentiary. Okay, so let's say he did it. It was a shove on the street. That guy deserves to be in, and they jacked up the charges so he could have served 11 years. And at one point during the trial, he turned and looked at his sister and said, take care of my kids, because he thought they were going to convict him. But they didn't. So he turned around and sued him for unlawful, prosecution, arrest. In that case, all I can say at this point is we are looking toward, it's pending.
Yeah.
The trial, and we're looking towards settling that matter. And I hope that Mark and others are able to give good news to people in very short order about that. But that's just one of the people. But there are many people. There are many unsung heroes that don't make it. No Isabel getting arrested by the Thought Police. No Mark Houck getting. But there are a lot of people that you don't hear from who are persecuted on a daily basis. And sometimes it's a little charges, and they get them 30 and 40 times, and they keep getting dismissed. And we walk that walk with them as well. So the categories that we have are those the the cases like Mark Houck's on a writ large, and then the annoying, then the cases like we monitor and file activities against when they file not just Planned Parenthood, but any abortion facility, any 501c3, they do stuff against the law. The drugs, because people ask us, okay, yeah, you defending Mark Houck, but what are you doing to end abortion? We have maps on our website about every single constitutional amendment that has come up, whether it's passed. We have the history, the only one that I'm aware of every constitutional amendment in the entire 50 states, when they had it, whether it passed, whether it failed, and what's the current state of it. And so on a bigger level, we're writing those letters, and you can see, to Pam Bondi and RFK Jr. and Donald Trump when necessary, and like, do you know about this? We're not jerks, we're not demanding action, but we're like, please take action. And in certain states like Washington State, we were just about to send a letter out to the Attorney General there and HHS there because they have report violations against abortion facilities, but it doesn't say against pro-life pregnancy centers, which is clearly covered by the statute. Disparate treatment. Shocker. And then the third thing are these big things, and I know you want to talk a little bit about April Wood, who's a former elected DA in Missouri, has been appointed AG in that case.
So let me, for the listener, so Missouri passes great pro-life laws. Planned Parenthood gets ticked off. Yeah, right. And so Planned Parenthood sues the state of Missouri.
No. Then the people of Missouri, a Midwestern, the people in a referendum, a constitutional amendment, pass Amendment 3.
Which is pro-life.
Which is pro-death. Amendment 3 allows abortion. The laws that you are talking about are pro-life.
Right.
Sorry, I may have misunderstood. The laws are pro-life. It's a felony, only, life of the mother and all that stuff. So there's of the provisions, I've done a compendium of this, about 130 regulations and laws. Amendment 3 comes in, and the people of Missouri pass it and allow abortion. In the state, they allow abortion in the middle of the country, and so up to viability. And the next day, Planned Parenthood is ready, and they file a lawsuit, and they say, well, now that we have abortion, all those 130 laws and regulations need to be wiped off the books. The state can't regulate it. And we're very fortunate that God provided a real great trial lawyer, April Wood, who has joined the ILJ a couple of years ago. And she is a former city attorney, county attorney, elected DA. And she joined us, and they appointed her a special attorney general, assistant solicitor general. And we are actually representing the state, along with a lot of other lawyers from the AG's office and Solicitor General's office, in fighting that challenge. And as well as both Dr. Haywood Robinson and Ramona Trevino acting as witnesses in the case.
Right. Haywood and Ramona. I think a lot of people don't realize, they can just sue the state. Like, is Planned Parenthood going to do this in every pro-life
It's
state?
funny, Justice Thomas is upset about that too. He can't figure it out either. It's called standing. Why can abortionists sue when they don't have a client? Right, because that's called standing. You need a client.
Right.
You can't just be like, I'm a lawyer and I don't agree with the speed limit.
It's like Jane Roe.
You need someone who is, right, exactly. So you need someone who is arrested for the speed limit, and then you claim, right, someone who is affected by the law, not abortionists. So the abortionists sue and knock down the Louisiana statute or House Bill 2, the whole women's health case. But when a pro-life group, Hippocratic Medicine, sues, and they don't have any women, they're just like, well, we're a conglomeration of pro-life doctors. They have no standing. Well, you don't have any clients. Well, no, but we represent the whole thing. The abortionists did it, and they're like, but you don't have any clients. I'm like, no, but I'm telling you, well, shouldn't we be similarly situated to other groups? The abortionists did it. Well, who's your client? It's like, I'm sorry, do you not read these other cases? You went to Harvard Law School, right? And they just ignore the argument, and it drives Justice Thomas, rightfully so, crazy, and he always dissents. He's like, why do they have standing when they don't have a client, but the pro-lifers don't have standing? Like, this is the heart of discrimination. Like, I know what discrimination is. This is discrimination. And Justice Ho in the Fifth Circuit, if you want to read a really good treatise, read his objection to whole women's health. And
he is our #1 draft pick for the next Supreme Court justice.
Born in Taiwan in 73.
Judge Ho.
The
He
year,
is the best.
year of Roe v. Wade.
He's young too, right? Seen his
73.
Judge Ho?
He was born in 73.
Oh. Okay, so yeah, he's in his 50s.
Yeah, you may have missed my point that I was exactly saying when he asked how old he was. I said he was born in 73.
But nobody can add all that. That's like,
You feel my pain.
you're born in 1952. It's like, I don't know. You tell me your age.
It's not add.
That's the good thing about Wikipedia. Will say you can look up somebody on Wikipedia and they'll be like born in, and then in parentheses for people like me, they'll just put he's 67 years old.
His point is that I'm old. That's really what his point was. Yes, I was born in 66. He's born in 73, so he's very young. And but anyway, great stuff to look up. Judge Ho in the Fifth Circuit, Justice Thomas's dissent in the whole women's health in Louisiana case, and his concurrence in Dobbs. Praise be to God. When Mississippi wrapped itself in glory and ended that. But we have big picture, and we're also helping in North Dakota. We filed briefs when the judge said that the Second Amendment protected women's right to abortion.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting where they use guns to justify abortion, which is a little bit of the libertarian thing. No government, stay away.
By the way, the abortion industry admitted they dropped that portion of the ruling. They were like, we're not persisting.
Planned Parenthood wasn't involved in that, were they?
No, I don't believe so, no.
They're not going to touch them.
Independent.
They in no way, for fundraising alone, are going to publicly say that they support the Second Amendment. They just can't.
Well, the judge came out of that a whole cloth. So, but no, I don't believe so. We filed the brief quite some time ago, but so we're helping on the big picture. People say, okay, well, you're doing the little stuff on the street. Thank you very much. What are you doing about? So we have letters on abortion pills that you and me and Dr. Donato Barillo, who I left out of my litany, we have a practicing MD who has a medical license in like 20 states or 11 states and is a law degree in several states. And he is a practicing lawyer, practicing medical doctor, and he helps us. And we've written letters.
Former military flight surgeon.
Oh, yeah. Special ops.
Equestrian expert.
Flight surgeon.
Kind of a Renaissance man.
He's
Italian.
He's Italian.
Donato Barillo, when you told
he says
me
it's
about
a group,
him,
it's a club, not a
he
gang.
and his wife helped lead the 40 Days for Life in Florida, in Gainesville. But
And they own a pro-life pregnancy center.
when you told me his name, you're like, he's Italian, he's Donato Barillo, his parents came over from
Barillo.
Italy. Yeah, and you just go on and on and on. I'm like, no, I get it. Like, what's his real name? Like, nobody's actually named that. That's too cool of a name.
Donato Salvatore Barillo.
Right out of Godfather 2.
I made up the Salvatore.
This is so important, though, that you guys are going after the abortion pill because while the leaders and your everyday pro-lifers are concerned about persecution from the government and threats from pro-aborts on the street, they're also concerned about, is 40 Days for Life going to become irrelevant in 5 years or 10 years as the abortion industry tries to go pill, and not do the surgeries anymore? And we've covered that 80% of abortions are still, whether surgical or pill-induced, are still coming through brick-and-mortar abortion facilities. But there's kind of this existential fear that 40 Days for Life will become irrelevant if everything moves to abortion pill by mail, webcam abortions, all of those sorts of things. So what can we do about that? And you guys are working on that.
By the way, that's a very irresponsible, as I've said before, position. And it's part of the post-Roe, we refuse to accept victory and acknowledge reality virus that's been going around in our country and particularly in our movement. And it's just... so we've celebrated all these victories. It's great, right? Over 60 Planned Parenthoods closed in 2025, and it's awesome. It is shocking to me that the massive Houston Planned Parenthood closed this year, because it should have closed about 5 years ago. And it's amazing. We report all this good news, but people underestimate how difficult it is for a Planned Parenthood to close or for a abortion facility to close. It's very, very difficult. Some of them have large overhead like Houston, but most of them have very small overhead. They own the building or it's a very low rent and they can just keep operating. And this notion that now abortion pills are in the little gumball machines, like you have at the front of Walmart, and so it doesn't matter, is very naive, and it's not true. I think it is such an inflated belief.
And you know what you're talking about because we're sitting in a former Planned Parenthood that you closed. And a bunch of other people.
That was in the most conservative city in America, most conservative, Research 5 institution in the country, and we're out here all the time, and they were booming.
But your answer's still theoretical and philosophic, which is it's naive to say that. Taking it down to the small level, the factual level is you can't take an abortion pill successfully at 8 months pregnant, but you can kill your baby in New Mexico at 8 months pregnant. And so when
in a lot of other states,
when people say, it's just I'm just saying Illinois, whatever, abortion up to and during birth, the abortion pill. Even the most radical, Biden administration, FDA that wants to make it 15 weeks, they're not saying that you can take it at 8.5 months, right? Because it doesn't work, and it harms the woman and the baby. And so as a result of this, it's not going. That's a factual reason why it's not going to be irrelevant. And when you pass, poor Ohio, it's like formerly Holy Ireland, poor Ohio. They have abortion, a radical abortion in their constitution, and people wanted to give up hope. And I always say no.
That's the most pro-life state that has the worst pro-abortion law. That the Ohio is a real, actual, substantive defeat.
But that's when 40 Days for Life becomes more relevant than ever, because lawyers become irrelevant. It's up to
it's over. Yeah.
It's in the Constitution. That's your highest law. So your only hope is where were you when?
Yeah.
But nobody was at the door.
Right.
But nobody was praying for me. So look.
And in Ohio,
people
closed that facility after their law.
Right after they passed the referendum to put abortion in their constitution.
It was right when all hope seems lost, its hope first begins to dawn, is what Chesterton said. And that's a great example. Everybody was depressed in Ohio. And I remember a few of our leaders reached out to me, and they were all depressed. And I talked to one of them. I will leave her name out. But she calls me, and she goes and I know it's coming. It's over! Just ready to jump off the cliff. And she goes on and on and on. And I go, who cares? And she's like, I was going to mess with her. How can you say that? Who cares? We just passed the worst abortion law. And I was like, how does this change your campaign?
It should make it better.
Exactly.
Because that's it. What you have is prayer and fasting and loving outreach. That's what you have left when you can suffocate the baby during birth. I mean, that's what you have left.
Right.
And I'm not saying you can do that in Ohio. I'm just saying when the law is, and also, can God do anything or not?
Right. Doesn't it make the victory better in Warren?
It does.
Because they had the law?
In fact, I don't remember why she picked this date, but the local 40 Days for Life leader in Warren prayed that God would close the abortion facility by such and such a date, and that was the very date that it went out of business. You can't make that up. I don't think that's a coincidence. The joke I was joking with her, maybe next time pick an earlier dates. Do it today. But in any case, she picked this date. We're going to pray hard that it will close by this date, and it happened immediately after that referendum was passed.
So that and I'm not a big, when somebody comes up and says God told me, I'm out, right? But that has happened 3 or 4 times, and I don't know how to explain that other than divine intervention. That She picked this date, she prayed. Don't we believe that prayer works? Don't we believe that God hears our prayer? We're not just throwing it up to an oak tree hoping for the best. I mean, there is a response, and it may be answered, it may be unanswered, but when it's answered, that's pretty remarkable that it was on that day, in that state. And so
you see the billboards where you've got kind of the bizarre cult type of groups. The world is going to end on whatever day. Oh, okay, buddy. But if that day comes and sulfur starts raining from the sky, I'm listening to that guy.
Well, that guy's the new pope. We're just listening to whatever he says, because that's you're right. You called it, and all these other people. Remember Y2K? So I was a junior in high school when that was happening, and I still couldn't figure out why they thought everything was going to crash. The computers
000.
But
Because 2000 was designated as 000, and the computers had no way. They didn't know. Nothing happened.
But we didn't trust. I mean, Bill Gates has done a lot of harm in the world, but the guy knows how to operate a computer. He couldn't overcome that.
No, we didn't trust Bill Gates, and with good reason.
Okay, but the world. Why didn't the world end though? The computers actually weren't.
It did.
This is a simulation. No, they just fixed the problem, right? I think they just fixed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyways, I agree with you with the guy that says
Yeah.
God is coming, judgment's coming. I actually enjoy those billboards because they're great opportunities. The kids ask questions about it.
I wanted to go back. Did you say we have a new pope?
No.
Oh, okay.
Don't get excited. But yeah, it is one of those things where it's we can do papacy. We'll talk about papacy all day. No.
Before we move to that, I did want to follow up on what Steve was saying and the bigger things so that people can look if they wish to. We did, you and me and Dr. I was talking about Dr. Donato Barillo when you rudely interrupted me with your Italian heritage stories. And
It was his Italian heritage stories.
they were your stories. They're about him. And
He is Italian.
yes, he is. It's a club, not a gang. And so
And he speaks Italian.
he does fluently, and we've been there and watched him do it. And so abortion pills are illegal. Like, they didn't follow the process. You live and die by the federal law, the Administrative Procedures Act. It's a petty thing, but they're using it against us. So what I'm trying to get at is we get it. There's a little picture, not that they're little cases, but on the streets. Stealing our signs, punching us in the face, threatening to... And then there's middle stuff, right? Like the big, like we talked about in Missouri and stuff like that. But then there's the big stuff, the philosophical. Well, how are we going to end abortion? And don't forget to talk about Barbara v. Donald J. Trump, the case in with the pregnant alien.
Let's talk about that now.
But I wanted to say we have a treatise to the federal government about abortion pills through the mail and why that's illegal. Right, and then we have a treatise about taking women across state lines, and what about the Mann Act, and isn't that sexually related, and all these types of things. So these things come up. Sometimes alert readers tell us about it, alert viewers, and we also have stuff on how to react if I think someone is being sex trafficked. Right, we're not experts in that, but we have a little resource about here's the number. There's an 800 number. There are experts on this, and we direct. So we do take care of the bigger issues. Well, don't you know that there's sex trafficking? Of course we know there's sex trafficking. But like we picked our we're in front of abortion facilities. When we end abortion, then we'll stay in front. They don't have like they don't have like planned sex trafficker that we can stand in front of and pray. Okay,
Right.
So in any event, one of the things that has happened that we follow are trends in the law, and I'm not sure why other people aren't. Maybe I'm just the stupidest guy in the room, but this case, Barbara v. Donald J. Trump.
Yeah. No, it's a big case. Why don't you take us through it?
Well, so there was a woman, several women, but this woman's name is Barbara. I don't know if that's her real name or a pseudonym. And she's one of what's called a class, a bunch of people. You might have heard of class actions or multi-plaintiffs. So a bunch of people sue. Anyway, she's getting deported under Donald J. Trump's administration. So what you do is you sue the president in his official capacity. And so her and a bunch of other people say, you can't deport me for various reasons. So she was legally in the country under some sort of refugee status, and but her husband or father of her children is an illegal alien, and she has 2 or 3 other children, and she's pregnant. So the ACLU files a brief that says over and over and over again, don't take my word for it, look it up on the internet, Barbara v. Donald J. Trump, her unborn child.
Yep. The ACLU. It's pro-life now.
Proving that when you want it, it's a child. And when
Yeah.
you don't, it's a useless blastocyst and a toxic clump of chemicals, cells,
Parasite.
a parasite which you destroy with chemicals. So the court is more circumspect and careful in its ruling, granting that she cannot be deported because she has her unborn child, who will be a U.S. citizen when born, and the rights
This
of
just
her,
shows how much they hate
he
Trump.
calls it a future citizen and stuff, doesn't act. But both of them are using pro-life words throughout the whole thing. Don't take my word for it. And she cannot be deported, I think it's Guatemala, back to Guatemala, not because of her, She can go. But because of the citizenship rights, well, for those of you that remember Nellie Gray and the original personhood movement,
Yeah.
that's personhood. That's saying that your unborn child is a person is a citizen, and a citizen can't be killed unless they're convicted of capital murder. And not too many unborn children are going to get convicted of capital murder, so you can't kill it. Your mom can't kill you. Your dad can't kill you. An abortionist getting $658 can't kill you. The nurse can't kill you. Nobody can kill you because you're a citizen of the United States.
What does the ACLU appeal to if the other side were to say that unborn child's not a citizen? You just can't state that.
They did state it.
I know, but what does the ACLU? We would say the ACLU would just cite the 14th Amendment, which is personhood. Why would?
But they did state it in their brief.
Right, but is there? I almost want the Trump side to say, "Well, prove it." Like that's not your unborn child doesn't give you a right to live in our country. That's not in the Constitution.
I don't care whether. I hope she does get to stay.
No, I know, but they
win.
would. Me too. But the ACLU would be forced to say, yes, it is in the Constitution, and I'm wondering if they've actually said that.
Oh yes,
They have.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. Under the so
They're appealing to that.
Oh, absolutely. All of a sudden, you know how I've been running around, stomping around in my cowboy boots, my cowboy hat. Where's my hat? Did John?
It's
Franklin
not in.
take
It's
away
in the
my
other.
hat?
It's in the other.
Told me
Producer
not-
John is actually.
I wanted to
he's
wear my
wearing
cowboy
it.
hat, and he's like, "You can't wear your cowboy hat because there's a certain shade in your eyes." And I'm like, "Oh, this crap! I really wanted my cowboy hat right now." So I was stomping around in my cowboy hat and cowboy boots and talking about it's not the First Amendment, it's not the Second Amendment. The First Amendment is free speech and free religion. The Second Amendment is what they say, the amendment that protects all the other amendments. The Second Amendment. It's not the Fourth Amendment that doesn't let the king himself cross your threshold of your home without a warrant. It's the 14th Amendment that says that we have due process and equal protection so that you don't have one group that can storm through the cities of the United States of America burning and looting and not getting any trouble, but you have another group who you disagree with, right? There's a great jurist that said, if obnoxious speech is not protected, no speech is protected, right? So if they protect you, but not Sean, which I personally am all for, but just because I'm all for it, they can't do it.
They can't do it.
Right? Justice is blind. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. Isn't justice blind? What are you talking about? You know, no, nobody says that. They're like, yeah, justice should be blind, but they don't believe it. But the ACLU has used now the 14th Amendment, the due process and equal protection of laws.
This falls into what my theory has been the last 7 months, which is the left, which lost their mind on abortion and the trans stuff, and then, more importantly, lost the election on trans and abortion after Kamala ran on it. They have traded trans and abortion for immigration as their new moral crusade. And the fact that the ACLU is willing to use this language and use the unborn child to keep a mom in our country, which I support, that's just, they're not doing that 3 years ago, and they're not doing it if Kamala's president. They hate Trump, and they're even compromising on abortion because their new golden calf is immigration.
And think about the judge. The judge either didn't think of it, like, hey, if I don't deport this woman, didn't I give an unborn child? Or, I believe it's a man, he or she thought about it and didn't care and said, I have to follow the law. This is the way I read the law. And if there are consequences, or they were right wing and were like, hey, they're calling it an unborn child. And I don't believe it's that category because the judge in the order did not write unborn child, He wrote future child, child's future right, stuff like that. So I guess the bottom line is that's a powerful case. I don't know why other people aren't arguing it. I certainly am. I'm trying to use it in the Missouri case and other cases around the country. Just got a call from another great pro bono right to life lawyer group, and they were asking, they have a case, and they were saying, do you know anything that could help us? And I'm like, actually, I do. Take a look at this case, because that's a federal district court case,
It's a federal district court case. So let me ask you, if somebody goes right now to that mom and, okay, let's say they win. Okay, the ACLU.
They did win.
Right, they did win. Okay, so if somebody goes and kills her, and the
Don't do
unborn
that.
and the unborn baby, they would be forced to pull the Scott Peterson and prosecute him for murder of both the unborn child and the mom. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and that begs the question.
Right.
Well, what about if it's the mom that kills the baby?
Right. Well,
Yeah, and you can't do it. That's why if the baby and this
Because being deported is a violation of your rights, but being dismembered, not a violation.
correct. You can't have that both ways.
or
They'll
the
argue it
boyfriend,
somehow.
the boyfriend stomps on her stomach, she lives, the baby dies. He gets charged with murder, which happened in Texas years ago. So,
But that's capital murder now, or murder.
okay.
In the first degree now in most states, just like Scott Peterson. So, as you always point out, if you're visibly pregnant, the restaurant can deny you a glass of wine. They can not let you get on the roller coaster. But if you say, I really want to ride this roller coaster, I'm going to run get an abortion and come right back. And they're like, that's fine.
That's fine.
But if if you want your baby and someone else kills your baby, that's first degree murder, or kills you, it's capital murder. But if you do it, that's the big thing. But what if I don't want my baby? Or what if I'm a doctor that wants money to kill your baby because you don't want your baby? Well, if your baby's a citizen, you can't do it. The mom no longer has the right, because there's only one person privileged to kill another person in the United States of America without consequence. The mom.
Yeah.
And when the idiot Ralph Northam came forward when he was governor of Virginia, who's a medical doctor, pediatrician, and said, what we do is we put the baby on the table, this is a live baby, and then we speak to the family. BS, we don't speak to the family. The family has no rights. Grandma has no rights. Uncle Bob has no rights. The dad of the baby has no rights. You speak to the mom and say, what do you want to do? BS, you speak to the family. And by the way, Ralph, how do you know that? How do you know what?
Always here.
Maybe
'Cause
somebody should be
I
invested.
said to you, I think it was on a webcast, I said, the weird thing is, how does he know that? And you go, begs the question. I'm not saying he's killed a bunch of little kids, but he's probably he knows a lot about it. Yeah, it is. But this is why, and to make Steve uncomfortable, I've been part of the Free Scott Peterson movement because if we're going to be consistent and he's in prison, he wants a mistrial, he wants a new trial, I think he should get one. I think it'd be great for the pro-life movement if he got one. I think Scott Peterson's a dirtbag and should, whatever, be in prison for the rest of his life. But under the law, Newsom is allowing infanticide and late-term abortion and paying for it, and he's sitting here going, wait a second. Part of, his sentence is double murder, second-degree murder.
It's like Dr. Haywood says, it's not double murder. It should be one murder and one practicing medicine without a license.
Without a license, which is one of the greatest lines Haywood's ever said. And I understand that. Like, look, I killed my wife. It was a crime of passion. We had an argument, whatever. But that second-degree murder, that's BS. And that I think that's going to be part of his argument. I don't know how the state of California could go against that. Any other wrapping up moments?
I just want everybody to know, thank you for letting us do that. People thank us, and I'm like, don't thank us. It's our job. We're here for the unborn, and I've been DA, and some people are on the streets of foreign countries with M4s protecting our liberty, but the greatest privilege is to protect those who just can't protect themselves. And so we stand up for that. Thank you and the board for giving us the ability to do it, both with resources and otherwise. And thank you and your team, Steve, for giving us the ability to do it. And please, if you see something, say something. Let us know. We can't always get you the result you want. We can't always get you any result. It's not always a legal matter. But if we don't know about it, we can't even look at it or do anything about it. And I feel like we have a dedicated team, and we know what we're doing. We're trial dogs. That's what we do. And we have a sophisticated team with doctors and lawyers and federal and state and local. And so when you have the simplest of questions like, they told me I need a gathering permit to have a 40 days for life. Is that true? We can figure out that I got arrested for assault and battery, but she hit me. We know about that. We know about that. Thousands and thousands of assault and battery cases. They stole my signs. They told me I couldn't even. They told me when I put down my water bottle that says pro-life that I've abandoned it and they can steal it. What is going on here? Well, that you're promised that you're going to be persecuted, but we can help you. And so we'll do all that.
And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that have not lost. You have not lost.
My first mentor said, you show me a lawyer that's never lost, and I'll show you a lawyer that's never tried a hard case. So, winning and losing and then on appeal, and did Mark Houck win? It seemed like a loss when they arrested him at gunpoint and put a fully automatic weapon across the threshold of his home at dawn and the chest of his wife, or near it, feet away. That seems like a loss. So, winning and losing is, and it's a long journey. Winning is going to be when abortion is abolished and when women don't feel like they have to have abortion and they're supported and loved, which that's what we've got. That's the weapon of love. And so I appreciate that shot in the arm, but expect to lose. That's, you can't win every.
We're not going to go undefeated forever.
No, but we've also, yes, we haven't, but sometimes we've been ignored. Some of those letters I talked about, they just didn't respond to us. Or sometimes we send a letter and say, hey, you can't say that. That's defamatory. Or you can't steal it. They're just like, they just don't even respond. And so sometimes you lose by attrition. So I do appreciate it. And the fact of the matter is what we are doing is we're saying, when you come after us, DA, when you come after us, Constable, when you come after us, Chief of Police, we are going to defend ourselves. We are not a light touch. We are not a patsy. We are not going to quake in fear and say, okay, we won't go out there anymore. Because that's what they want. They want the chilling effect, right? The process is the punishment. And that we can win on because the process is no longer the punishment. Because you know what? After we get acquitted, we're going to sue yourself.
Tail.
Oh, your whole self.
Yeah.
Not just your tail. As you can see in a very nice voicemail.
Yeah. If you haven't watched the webcast, go back and watch the End Abortion Anywhere webcast, and you'll listen to the voicemail of our colorful opposition.
We're not going to sue we're going to see your whole person.
Yeah. Please rate, review, share this podcast, and if you encounter legal problems, contact your local leader, and they will email us at legal@40daysforlife.com. Right now, it has really never been safer. You've never been more protected to go out and practice our free speech so that we can end abortion. So thank you, God bless you, and we will see you next time.